I think the Dead Sea Scrolls was the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 was a huge. It really gave credibility to the Old Testament text, right? So we have the Masoretic text, which was, I don't remember what year that was, 500s, 1000, something like between 500 and 1000, I think, is when the Masoretes were writing. And so you have the Masoretes are writing their text, and they're adding in the vowels because there wasn't vowels in the original language. And that was the earliest, like, actual, like, physical copies that we had of the Old Testament. So when the Dead Sea Scrolls come along, and there's like 800 scrolls, and they've got Old Testament books, and they also have other stuff as well. It's not just all Bible, but they have all of the Old Testament books except for Esther, and they have the entire Isaiah scroll. And you can look at these scrolls, these Dead Sea Scrolls, written somewhere between 250 BC and 135 AD. So Jesus lived and died. I should say he died and rose somewhere around in the 30s AD. So these things are written between 250 and 135 AD. And when you have something like that we discovered that was so well preserved for nearly 2,000 years, or actually, yeah, 2,000 years, and it's actually showing, like, word for word what we actually have. It gives confirmation not just to the Masoretic text, because it lets us know that the Masoretic text, or those scribes are good, but also lets us know all the Bible that we're reading is actually accurate. And I remember I went to a Dead Sea Scroll exhibit once, and this is goodness, probably 15 years ago. And at the end of the exhibit, they had this massive, like, oval table of pieces of the scrolls. And one was, I remember going up to one, and I was looking at, and it was Psalms in English, and they had the Dead Sea Scroll next to it. And I can, of course, read the Dead Sea Scrolls, but there was a guy that was next to me that was able to read them, and so he's literally translating it from the language into English, and I'm reading along in the English as he's translating, and I can see that it was consistent. It was such a cool kind of experience. So I wouldn't, like, we have other things that have helped affirm to us that even the Old Testament is credible, because the Dead Sea Scrolls predate by a lot, 1,000 years, the Masoretic scribes that gave us our written ones, because it was oral. There was so much oral before that.
Well, and even on those, it's cool to see, they're not exactly the same. Like there are minor differences, and
Hmm.
um, but it's what I love too is, we as Christians, we don't believe that the text needs to be perfectly preserved. That's not the
Right.
doctrine of inerrancy. That's not what we believe as Christians. That is, interestingly, what Muslims believe about the Quran, that it's been
Right.
perfectly preserved, which is a big problem because when you look at the history of it, there's been tons of changes over the years, and it's not been perfectly preserved. But as Christians, we don't believe that it's been perfectly preserved. We believe that the inspired word of God was perfect as it was given, and that it's been reliably preserved. And this is
Mhm.
helpful, I think, just as a concept, because it lowers the bar from, we need to prove that everything is absolutely perfect the same way it was originally written, to, can we trust that what we're reading today is basically the same as what was originally written? And like you said earlier, Mike, we can trust that. I mean, we have a huge degree of confidence, partially because of the number of manuscripts that we have, and then, Alicia, what you're pointing out, how early those manuscripts go. Because if you have a huge time gap between when the thing was supposedly written and then our earliest copy, well, that has a lot of that lowers our degree of confidence that what we have
Hmm.
is accurate to what was originally written. But when we go earlier and earlier and earlier, it gives us much more confidence to know that what we have today is what was originally written down. So I love that point about the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's awesome.
Yeah, and just to be clear, so, like, the Masoretic text, when they took the texts that were around, but they were,
Mm,
there was no vowels, like, there was no accents, like, it was the pronunciations were oral. And so
mm,
for them to just be able to, insert the vowels so that we could actually preserve actual pronunciation going forward. So it wasn't even just the context, it was also preserving the pronunciation of stuff that they did, which is cool, because there's the manuscripts previously were just consonants. So it's just, there's so much great stuff here when you look at the Bible. There's a plethora of stuff that we actually are really spoiled when it comes to Bible credibility, let alone
mm,
looking outside of the biblical text to Roman sources and Jewish sources that affirm Jesus' existence, his crucifixion, Pontius Pilate crucifying him. Like, you don't need the Bible to know those things. You
Mm.
can read that in other sources as well. So you've got these other sources that are not even religious and Christian based that actually confirm essential things about who Jesus was.